the solution, but like, I'm about a good system.
We're picking up on that.
Yeah. There's a common theme over there.
Yeah. What else? More people, more coaches.
I'll ask a question. Go ahead, Amber.
Something that I would like to elevate, and actually I think you said this earlier, is, once our kiddos leave third grade, their literacy journey is still continuing.
That's right.
And one of the pieces of support that I would like to see is, we as a state, how do we define what is adolescent literacy? What does that look like? How do we begin to build these supports within our systems so that as kids are matriculating through their their middle school and high school journey, what are those layers of support that we're providing as they're moving through the systems?
I'm actually glad you said that, because I literally just met with Tiffany and Carol about that same conversation yesterday. Like, what is that training and support? And I think and y'all are probably part of it, is doing some really robust summer workshops on that training. Because like, as I'm working with DNF schools and districts, like as a state, should we be requiring those teachers to do these trainings as well? And like, one of the things that I feel like, as I visit a lot of schools, that we could probably be better at in supporting teachers is, how do you implement a 90-minute uninterrupted literacy block, right? Like, that, shouldn't that be the standard, right? Like, as I think of policies and rules, like, I don't think as a state it's a bad thing to say we expect literacy in elementary school to be a minimum of 90 minutes and uninterrupted. And if we're going to do that, how do we support them with effective Tier 1 instruction while providing interventions where we're not just sticking kids on a computer, right? Like, I think screen time is a problem in our failing schools. Like, if we were to talk about other things that we need to talk about, I'm tired of walking into classrooms and seeing kids on computers and adults not doing anything, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. So I think, like, I know we're running out of time. I always like to say, if you were in charge of the state one day, if you were going to make one decision, what would you make? But then also say,
computers
if you were
and phones are gone.
I think you're already kind of leading
We've
there
already
a little bit.
we're
halfway
one step
there.
One step in.
If you were to tell teacher prep anything, right? Because that's like the next thing that we're working on, is strengthening in our pipeline. What would you say? Like, if you could wave your magic wand and tell teacher prep, can you please teach this to teachers? Okay, I see some hands, because I got that. That's another area that we're going big in.
When I go in with my coaches and I watch them have these coaching conversations with teachers, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter if they've been there for 2 months or for 22 years, but especially for those new teachers, I would love teacher prep to say, I know you might not teach in Arkansas one day, but these are our Arkansas state standards, and I want to teach
the standards.
Understand the state standard as it relates to your instruction. So if you go to Texas or bottom of the barrel Mississippi one day, you're going to understand how to use the state standards to inform your instruction.
I think, to piggyback on that, it's teaching teachers how to plan with high-quality instructional materials.
I agree. That's good.
Because they are handed a curriculum a lot of times and lack the training to really dive in and plan effectively. And I think that comes across in their teaching, is they're not planning, they're doing copy and paste lesson plans because that's what they've been taught. They haven't been taught how to really dig in and internalize a lesson. But it also, the school systems lack a system of supporting the teachers with the time to be able to do that.
And Terry, I'd like to add on to that. In our ed prep programs, we need to make sure we're sending that message, that autonomy, when it comes to teaching certain skills, that's not best practice. We don't experiment with kids. We must put validated practices in front of them and make sure that that our instruction is leading to learning.
I know this will be a little off topic, but kind of tied in, but this is really just more out of pure curiosity. And because Jacob brought up the amount of time that kids are on screens, I know you're dealing with it, for the most part, younger group, but how are you seeing a change, or are you in phones being removed from the classroom. Again, I know younger kids for the most part that you're working with, but I've seen 5 and 6 year olds coming into schools with phones. So are you seeing a shift and a change in the schools that you're in with cell phones being removed from the classroom, and much pushback from any of the administration or teachers or feedback in that space?
So most of y'all are at elementary schools, right? Yeah, so
You'd be shocked how many elementary kids have a phone.
To speak to that, we are, or in my case, we are seeing teachers being more vigilant on how much screen time they are giving them. So that does trickle down as well in kindergarten, first, second.
Well, we're starting to the requirement of the schools not necessarily a limit on how much screen time, but at least having to publish and put out how much of the instructional time is on a screen. And so by having to say that out loud, you realize, whoa, we didn't even know that our kids were sitting on computers for 3 hours a day. And that came from one of the classroom visits. That was from student feedback of saying that we actually like it better when we're not on the computers. That was in one of the high schools that we went to, or maybe it was a junior high, I think. And we went into a classroom, and there were several kids that we were talking to where they had removed the phones, and they were talking about how much they liked it better. They didn't like it at first, and I realized that that's not always the case, because I've met several of those students that don't love that. As I travel around the state too.
They send us emails too.
Yeah.
So they are learning how to write.
Some of them came up to me as I was passing
that.
out candy on Halloween. They, I think, came for the sole purpose of telling me that they wanted their phones back at their school. I just gave them extra candy and said,
Yeah.
Is this a good compromise? I'll give you sugar, but no cell phone. So, but I would be curious if you're hearing much feedback. Again, I know you're with a younger student population, but.
Just thinking about my oldest grandchild's 13, and I hear it from her mother that she can't text her during the day. I'm like, she's at school. Why would you text her during the day?
Yeah. It was.
That seems to be a big push. It's not the kids, it's their parents.
It was actually interesting. I think a lot of the biggest pushback that we received was from parents. And you're seeing that a lot nationally. Parents have gotten where they want to be in constant contact with their kids, which is not necessarily a great thing, especially when they're supposed to be doing their math homework or their instructional period, and instead they're constantly checking in. And so that was some of the initial feedback we had too, was parents, well, how will I get a hold of them? Same way our parents got a hold of us. They called the office and they sent them a note if there was something important. They told us. If not, we heard about it when we got home, and we turned out relatively okay.
Yeah. Debatable, but yeah.
Hey, please keep that push for good preschool.
Yeah.
Pre-K really matters. We can see such a difference in districts that we work with that have really strong pre-K feeder schools. Just their basic understanding of letters and sounds. We can absolutely start from that in kindergarten and work on. And there's such a difference between kids who've been to a good pre-K and had instruction.
That's true.
And kids that have just had a play-based experience or daycare that they didn't have instruction. And it really shows, it really matters. So more access to good pre-K.
Anything else? I know we're coming to close here, and I don't want to slow Jacob down from getting to be first in the potluck line. So.
Well, one thing that I am seeing that I would wave the magic wand, in the district I support, there are several non-traditional teachers. So they are coming in, not having been in a classroom since they were in elementary school, and they are not equipped with all of the tools they need to be successful, and the amount of support they need in all realms: classroom management, organization, just how to be a teacher, how to even look at the curriculum, is a little overwhelming for some of them. And because I'm in a very small district that has 3 administrators in the entire district, that support's not readily available. And there's only one of me in many of them. So I would love for them to have some sort of system.
See, look, let me see what I can do. No, I'm
that-
just kidding.
Yeah, Lauren will fix
So
it.
that it's more readily available when they need it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost like, you know, we talk about tiered supports for students, right? Teachers need tiered supports as well, right? They come to us at all different levels. And I think as we get more sophisticated, that those are the kinds of conversations we need to have, because there's a reality, about half of our teachers come from non-traditional pathways. And whether they're K through 12, what does that support look like? And that's good conversations for next steps.
One more thing I would wave my magic wand. Y'all
Just build a system, let me guess.
That perfect system, no. It's time before school starts to work with some of our teachers, which I know if our school comes on the list in October or something like that, it's not always a possibility. But going into starting internalization and some of that work, looking into your HQIN, really digging into standards. They're doing professional development maybe over the summer, but it would be super helpful if some of that time before school, when you're doing some of those PD days, would be time that as a coach we could come in and start that work from the very beginning. I don't know about y'all, but I have had teachers voice that to me.
So like the district's PD days, like
Yes.
the pre-plan,
Yes.
yeah, that's
We
good.
could've started this,
Yeah.
the end of July,
Yeah.
1st of August, that it would be so much easier because I wouldn't have as much on my plate yet,
Right.
Is there a reason you can't do that now?
We are doing it now.
Okay.
And I think the teachers just, I just finished 3 full days of internalization, Monday. So we did Thursday, Friday, Monday, and it's coming up on Christmas time. And I think it's just that overwhelming sense of there's so much going on right now. I'm struggling. My cognitive load is up here. My threshold is not, I have low frustration tolerance, low threshold. And if I had been able to start this in August, maybe my conversation would have been a little bit different. We would have had less struggle.
Right. And our hope, because we had to build a new assessment, which so getting data is slow, right? Because we got to validate it, do the standard setting. But next year or this year in the spring, we're going to have achievement results within 24 hours, right? Instead of 3 months like this. So I think that would help. Now calculating learning gains to give a grade is still going to take a little bit of time. But I think to your point, if we can identify schools in the summer and start working with those districts on mapping out that plan, it's more seamless. So we need to keep having conversation with Hope and her team about how do we get you all what you need a lot sooner. I think that's a fair ask.
I think it speaks to the sense of urgency too. We're not
Yeah, we're going quick. We got to go. We got to go.
I have one more magic wand, and I know I'm not in that area. I'm here in this area, but my heart is there, and I think about the areas like around Lee County, the Delta area. They have that's the area where there's the lowest of the low test scores, and they don't have a lot of support. We don't have any coaches there. I know they do have, TNTP, and they have kit in different areas. But what can be done in areas like that? Because if we're really truly focusing on 475,205 students that are in Arkansas, we want to make sure they
All of them.
When we have those low areas like that, and we don't have people like us in there coming in, what can we do to make sure that those students are achieving too? So I definitely want that to be, and probably is a thought process, but I wanted to throw that out there, even though
And that's where we have opportunities to be innovative, and that's where I think we talked about the cooperative. How do we share resources, and how do we think about this work differently? Because the status quo is not working, right? And these kids deserve every opportunity as well. So I think you're right in making sure we ask those questions. And I know the governor talks about Mississippi, and you can even go into Louisiana and some other parts that are part of the Delta. Those students are outperforming ours, right? So we got to stop making excuses about these communities and these expectations that the students can't, because I can take you across the state line and show you where they can, and I think our kids can too.
And one thing that is always been really interesting to me is when we were looking and first putting the pieces of LEARNS together, I had the county by county breakdown of where our students were performing the best when it came to literacy. And you'll be shocked to know that the #1 performing county in the state of Arkansas was Arkansas County. And so
somebody got
yeah, but I mean, honestly, I was surprised to see that was where, now granted, we were still, every county was not hitting at the level where we wanted it to be. At that point, Arkansas County was the highest, and it was at like 51% of our students in 3rd grade were hitting that benchmark. And so it was very eye-opening, but it told us, I think, a few things. One, that part of it is that we expect students in certain areas not to do well, and we have to stop doing that too. Because I was like, oh, I'm surprised. Well, I shouldn't be.
Right.
We have amazing educators in that space. We have parents that are engaged. We have great schools, and they're performing at a high level, even given some of the most difficult surrounding circumstances. Our students are still performing at a higher level. And so I think one of the things we've talked about a lot, and you always give this example of asking when you go into parents and in different groups of students, and you say, where do you think Arkansas is ranked? And everybody always says, oh, 47, 48. We have to stop expecting that we're going to be at the bottom. And I think we have to stop expecting our schools will be at the bottom, those districts will be at the bottom, and our state is at the bottom. And so they do have a lot more challenges, a lot more things to overcome. And I think that means we have to approach it sometimes a little bit differently. But we have to also come to the table with the expectation that they can and they will excel if we lean into that space.
Exactly.
So I think it's a really critical piece that we have to change the way we think about it too.
I think there was one last hand. I don't know if you have time.
Sure.
Adam, you mentioned 3rd grade promotion and what that impact may be having in our schools. I think it's really changed the narrative of our kids can't do
Yeah.
to what do we need to do to help our
Exactly.
kids get where they need to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a big piece in some of the buildings that we're in is you go in and they're like, well, our kids can't. This is our demographic, these are our community. And we're able to go in and say, well, parents are going to hear it 3rd grade. So what do we need to do as a system? What do we need to do as a building or a district to help our kids get where they need to be and get there fast?
Yes. Amen.
Great. Well, again, I want to kind of finish where we started by saying thank you for the great work that you're doing. I do think it is making a major difference in our state and in the lives of students. I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the big number of nearly 500,000 kids, but when you break it down by one kid at a time or the school that you're in, and you get to see the difference that you're making in those individual students' lives, it is having a dramatic effect from every corner of our state. And you guys are on the front lines and really leading that charge. I'm unbelievably proud of the progress we're making and the difference that you're making in the lives of our students. And this isn't something that is a quick fix, but it's going to have, I think, a generational impact on so many people, so many families, and so many kids for many years to come. So thank you for the great work that y'all are doing, and we'll continue to be as available and keep adding resources as much as we can. And I think these kind of check-ins are really helpful for me to get that feedback and also to find out what our magic wand needs are. But thank you again for the great work you're doing, and we'll continue to be as supportive as possible and keep adding resources along the way. So thank you all.
Great job.